Welcome to a Protopie Crash Course. Protopie is becoming an increasingly popular tool among designers because of the functionality it offers without code. You can build super simple flows to high fidelity, fully blown prototypes, and all of this is possible in just one tool. So this series will cover a list of different topics, and by the end of this crash course, you will be confident in prototyping most of the use cases that you might have as a designer in your daily work. So without any more talk, let's get started. So the first thing you need is Protopie tool itself. So you can jump into protopie.io and download the free trial. So it gives you like a 7-day free trial as soon as you download, and it gives you an additional 10 days when you sign up with your email address. So that's about 17 days of free trial. And you need to have Sketch installed. I'm sure most of you would already have as a designer. So if you don't have Sketch for this course, you can also follow using Figma or Adobe XD. There's a sketch file attached along with this video, which you can use for playing around. The source files are also available along with the description, and you can also check out designerx.io for a classroom experience of this course with discussions, exercise files, and other courses. So let's quickly jump into the tool and see what's going on. So the first thing you notice here is a scene. So it's called scene 1, and scenes are very different to artboards on Sketch, and you can change the size of a scene by tapping over here, and you can select which device that you want to design for or rather prototype for. So if you select an iPhone X or iPhone 10 and then hit OK, the scene changes accordingly. Or you can select one of the custom sizes. So you can say 360 cross 640 and then density of 2x. So the density will be an import option, which I'll touch on in just a bit. And you've created a scene. So you can access all your scenes from this icon. You have scene 1 over here. You can change the name to say onboarding or something else, and you can create a new scene by tapping on plus, or you can, let's say you have, I'm going to go to shape and create a rectangle over here, and let's say you want to duplicate the screen. That is also possible by right click and say duplicate. So this will create an exact same scene, and you can go and say scene 3 or rename it whichever you want. So this is how you work with screens. So the toolbar that you see here is very simple and straightforward. It's got an import option where you can import different files. You have your options Adobe XD, Figma or Sketch. You can import an image, import it right from your desktop or any other place, and you can import a media file, a video, audio, or a camera. So camera is to activate your device camera during prototype. Yes, that's possible, and we'll cover how to use camera in different ways in one of the later videos. So, or you can create a shape. You have a rectangle or an oval. That's we will mostly be using all designs from Sketch, so you might mostly not need this, but just good to know that you have this. You can create text and input layers. So text is similar to just a simple text layer like this. You can go and change your text, and input layers are basically input fields. Yes, you can actually input text from your prototype on your device, but we will go into detailed functionality of how to work with inputs in one of the later videos. Then you have a container. So you have 3 types of containers. You have a normal container, which is similar to a group on Sketch, and this container is basically empty. And let's say you want to put both of these into the container, just drag drop and you have the container. So when you hide the container, you see all the contents inside gets hidden. So the container size is different from the size of the child elements itself, and you can change the size of the container, and you can see the dimensions here on the right. You have different options for the container. You can also change the width and the height from here. So in addition to that, we have the component panel, which you see here. Actually, it just created a component from this container, but we will jump into what components are in detail in one of the later videos. But now we will do Command Z for us to remove this. And you have the interactions panel that you see here, which again we will jump into it in the next video. This is where you will be managing all your interactions that have to do with any of the elements on the scene. So let's look at some of the options in your right, which we have your preview, we have your device, and cloud and upload. So let's see what preview is. It's basically this preview window which stands on the right. So what I like to do is when I'm designing, I don't keep the preview window open, and I just do command tilde to toggle between the preview and this one. Sometimes it may not be as convenient, so what you can do is just move this around and then have the preview window open. So but then you have these two panels blocking most of the view. So simply you can just go here and you can see toggle layer panel or toggle interaction panel, or you also have the options Alt Command 1. So simply you can press Alt Command 1 or Alt Command 2. To refresh the prototype on your preview window, you can hit Command R or Command Shift R. That should refresh the contents of the prototype. So it actually automatically refreshes when you move things around. As you see, the preview window automatically refreshes. Sometimes you might interact with the preview panel and you might want to refresh, so that time Command Shift R will be quite handy for you to refresh. You can also use Command Z to move things back. One last thing is, if you have a different device, for example, let's say an iPhone X, I'm going to say OK. So you can see the frame of the device right here. You can toggle that off from here, which should keep your viewport clean. So it's always good to keep it toggled on, so that you know how are you designing for this particular device. So let's go ahead and import our sketch file and see how to do this. So I'm going to delete all these layers. I'm going to go to scenes. Let's delete all these scenes. Let's just keep one at the moment. Yeah, so I just have my onboarding screen, and I'm going to go into sketch, and then as you see here, we have our sketch file with one artboard with different groups. I'm just going to go into the grouping structure. So we have 6 cards, and each card has a list of elements, and they all have the same name, so there is no naming convention inside a card. But the cards themselves have been named from card 1 to card 6. So this is card 1 up here on the top, and the overall, all the cards have been grouped into a group called scroll, and everything else is just an artboard. So I need to have sketch running in the background to jump back into Protopie, and then I'm going to say import, I'm going to say sketch, and then you have the sketch import option where I select which artboard that I want to import, and I can select the size. So just note here that we are importing at 2x, but the device is at 3x, and the dimensions are also completely different. Let's go to sketch and see. Our dimensions are 360 cross 760, but over here our dimensions are 375, 812. So it's going to be, the import is not going to be so great. So let's check all of the re-import options for now and say import. And as you see here, everything looks too small because we imported a 2x, but everything here is 3x. So we can select this, go to custom, 360 cross 760, and then we can make it 2x because we imported it in 2x, and say OK. And then let's just delete this and Command I, import again, and then 2x. And when you say import, everything should look perfect. So let's quickly look at our grouping structure. Let me go back into sketch, and you can see how our groups are organized, and come back into Protopie. The organization is the exact same. So instead of groups, you have containers, and inside each container, each rectangle or an oval becomes an image. So an image works differently because you cannot change some of the properties, like let's say fill. You cannot change the fill from here because it's imported like an image. Similarly, you have different rectangles imported as images. So to have a layer within Protopie, you have to create a layer from here. But for now, we won't have any sort of fill animation going on here, so we just import it as an image. So if you make a change within Protopie, for example, I'm going to go into card 1 and select this oval, and I'm going to reduce the opacity to say 50%, right? And then I'm going to command hit save. Okay, let's not save this for now. I'm going to do command I, and I'm going to select the introduction again, and I'm going to re-import. What happens is it imports again, all of the layers are replaced, except the opacity that we defined here is retained and it does not get overridden. So you basically, whatever changes you make within Protopie stays within Protopie. Or if you want to change your import options, you have some of the re-import options. You can override positions of layers, which means the position from sketch is overwritten here, otherwise it does not get overwritten. For example, if I change the position of the oval here and import again, it will not get overwritten. But when I'm going to show you quickly, see, nothing will happen. But now when I go to command I and have this checked and then import, everything sets back to normal. Similarly, you also have override sizes, then update layer orders and grouping structure. So if, let's say, you change one of these layers and push it to another group and then import it again, it will retain the previous structure that you had unless you keep this checked. Or you can remove layers, delete in sketch. So which means if you delete one of these from sketch and then import it again, you will find the same layer which was previously imported already here. It will not be deleted. So this will be useful when you're trying to prototype much larger prototypes and you're managing bigger prototypes. So that's pretty much it. I'm going to move this opacity back to 100. So that's about the tool, and now quickly we will make this view into a scroll view. So the way to do this is fairly simple. You select on scroll and you can go into the properties and select scroll over here. So you can also select the direction, and then this over scroll is that bouncy effect, and as soon as you do that, you can see it scrolling, but it doesn't scroll beyond a point because you have to change the viewport of the scroll. So I'm going to change the size of this container, which is the same as changing the viewport, and then keep the size within our scene. So now what happens is when you scroll, you're able to scroll as simple as that. And that's how you create a scroll container. Or you can also create a scroll container manually from here and first define its size and start putting contents into it. It's pretty much the same behavior. So that's how we have created a scroll container, and this is all about the basics. And in the next video, we will learn how to import your prototypes to your device and then test them to see how to interact with them.